Rated Gen Z, where real talks get real. Each episode dives deep into the minds of 18 to 24-year-olds, exploring their dreams, struggles, and perspectives that most people never hear. We're diving into the chaos that defines a generation everyone talks about, but nobody actually listens to. This isn't just a podcast. This is a generation speaking. If you enjoyed this episode and you're between the ages of 18 and 24 and would like to be a featured guest, go to rock.vision. Until next week. Welcome to the Rated Gen Z podcast, Vanessa. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. Happy Thursday.
I keep thinking it's Friday. I don't
Same.
know why, but wishful thinking, right?
Right.
So we're both in San Diego. We were trying to set this up in person, but schedules and finding a location can always be a little tricky. So I appreciate you at least jumping on Zoom.
Definitely.
And I don't know that much about you. I think I saw a post on Promises to Kids, which I'm a mentor for their Guardian Scholar program.
Oh, nice.
And I saw that you're doing some advocacy work for them. And then somehow it came up that you went to UCLA, which I went to UCLA. And then recently I heard something that you went to Bishop's and I went to Francis Parker, so rival high schools. So I thought, oh my gosh, okay, we actually have quite a lot of things in common.
Right.
But I would love for you to your intro and just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll just take it from there.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I'm super excited. Any podcast that's focused on Generation Z, I think is going to thrive because there's such a cool squad of people. So thank you for having this platform.
You're welcome.
Just a brief introduction. I'll make it super simple. My name is Vanessa. I go by Vanessa or Vanessa Rosalie. I'm 22 years old. I'm from San Diego, California, born and raised. I've spent about 13 years of my childhood in foster care. I've lived in 12 different placements. I've gone to 5 different schools. But outside of foster care, I am a school nerd. I love everything math, science, English, writing, just learning. I love to soak all in the information in that I can. That definitely comes from my background of trauma and chaos. I know that school is somewhere I can learn and thrive. So that's a little bit of what I'll be talking about today, my foster youth experience, advocacy that I do. I work with kindergarten youth, so that plays a really big role in where I see myself going. So yeah, I'm excited to dive in.
I love it because I think we're in a place right now where Generation Z is really open to speaking about things that we weren't, at least my generation wasn't open because of the judgment and what people were going to think, and are people going to like me if they know the real me? And I believe that you guys are really changing the narrative around what it means to be vulnerable. And I think it's fantastic because it's the only way that we're going to be able to help and make a difference and have things actually change. And so that's why I love that you're willing to come on, because I will say, I just became a mentor for the Promises to Kids. And I've never mentored someone that had gone through the foster care system. I actually don't know very many at all now that I think about it. And my mentee, she's 22 as well. And we just started several months in, so we're still getting to know each other. And I think one of the biggest things, and I would love for you to address this, is there is a label around someone that has gone through the system. The reality is a lot of people, when they think foster youth, they think automatically, like you said, chaos, trauma. That must mean that youth, that child, that teen is probably has a lot of, we all have baggage, right? But with trauma comes a lot of mental things that come, I'm trying to be sensitive
no, I know what you're saying.
But I feel like a lot of people automatically assume what that youth is going to be like maybe when they're an adult. And looking at you, you're someone that is definitely going against that label. And so I want to address, first of all, how you're able to do that, because I feel like there's too many people in your position that don't feel like they can. So I feel like you'd be a great person to also help those that maybe are listening that have gone through the system and maybe do feel like they're labeled and they're in this box and they can't get out of it because of that label. So if you're willing to kind of address that.
Yeah. No, definitely. Okay. There are so many different avenues that you touched on.
That's a very loaded question.
So I would start, the first thing that caught my attention is when you were mentioning the stereotype and how foster youth are seen as delinquents. And honestly, being a foster youth, I used to believe that myself too, that a lot of external people thought we were delinquents, we were juvenile, just getting involved in the criminal justice system. But being 22 now, I realize that most people don't know anything about foster youth. And the illusion is more so harming foster youth because we're thinking they're thinking it about us. So we accept that label and then we act out in ways or we approve of acting out because we think they're already expecting it when really they're not. Like if you had never been a mentor, you may have like Annie in your mind, the movie of like an orphan and someone who doesn't have parents, but most humans know that children can grow up to be whoever they want to be. So I would say to foster youth out there who are listening, that the label is an illusion just as much as anything else is. And no one really expects you to be a delinquent. No one expects you to be off the chain or chaotic. You can truly be whoever you want to be. And to answer your second question, like, how did I get to be a UCLA grad and all of these things despite being a foster youth? It's honestly because I had 8 years with my family before foster care that was still chaotic, but it was enough of normalcy that I could figure out who I was at an early age. I've always known that my life was going to be used to show my resilience. I was born into homelessness. My mother has always been someone who struggled her whole life, but kept a smile on her face. So, compared to other foster youth who are born into severe chaos, put into the system, and kept being told, like, you're going to be juvenile delinquent or you're this, you're not going to graduate. I at least had a foundation to go off of and to keep myself on even at age 8.
Okay, so when you say foundation, like specifics, foundation wise, because again,
Yeah.
maybe parents are listening and they want to also understand how they can foster a really safe space
Hmm.
for youth like yourself that, yeah, maybe you have to go on and face a challenge, but they fostered a good sense of self from the beginning to help you do
Right.
that.
Yeah, that's a great point. My foundation is religious. My
Okay.
mom put my brother and I, when we were younger and we were homeless, we would go to church every Sunday. And that to me has been my foundation till this day. Yeah, my faith. And also, I think just having a sense of belief system that correlates with the struggle that I've gone through and gives me an answer for it. To where a lot of foster youth who aren't religious go through trauma and they're like, why me? And that's
Mhm.
why they act out because they feel like they deserve it or they feel guilty. Whereas for me, by the time I hit foster care, I already learned about Jesus and how he died on the cross and how a lot of pain has a purpose. So, if anything, I felt empowered to be a foster youth. I felt like God was giving me an opportunity to use everything that I had already learned and to come out strong, which, as I can say today, I have done. So, religion has played a huge factor. I know that that's not a super comfortable conversation for a lot of people, and it's hard to introduce religion to foster youth once they're already in the system, if they weren't already introduced to it. So just safe spaces at the end of the day. Any safe space really makes a big difference.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I mean, I'm not a religious person. I'm very
Hmm.
spiritual, but I do respect anyone that has that faith. And whatever you need in order to be able to get you to move forward, then who am I to judge that or anybody
Right,
else, right? And I do believe that, like what you said, it's almost like we're all being tested throughout life. Like life is a journey, and there's going to be situations where we're tested,
right.
where we're going to be like, again, why me? And why is this happening? And the fact that you realize in that moment, okay, this is essentially like a test. This is going to challenge me.
Hmm.
This is going to really push me. And you took it and you were like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna survive it and I'm gonna be stronger for it.
Hmm.
And that's really important for people to kind of understand that when we go through things that are really difficult, it really pushes us, I believe, if possible, to be a better person
Definitely.
and to learn from it. And
Hmm.
so, what
Hmm.
are like some of the biggest lessons that you have learned from being in the system?
That's a great question, actually, that I've never been asked.
Okay.
It's so funny. I'm actually on a panel for foster youth, and for like 3 years, I've never heard that question, as simple
Okay.
as it is. Lessons I've learned from the foster care system, there's so many, but
Well,
the
that's a
first thing
good
that,
thing that there's so many at
yeah,
least. That's better than I didn't learn
yes,
anything.
there's so many, it's hard to pinpoint and like vocalize it. But the
Okay.
first thing that came to mind would be how trauma influences like how you feel in your body.
Mm.
I spent 13 years in the system from age 8 to 21. And for those years, I went from like normal childhood development to obesity. By the time I was 18, I was way over the healthy amount for how a young woman is supposed to weigh. And I felt it. I was depressed. I was pushing through with school and applying to UCLA and studying abroad, but it was so miserable. I was so like ashamed to be in my body more than I was ashamed to be a foster youth. And I went on a long journey at like 19, age 20, where I was hiking and I was fasting and eating good food, and I was able to shed that weight off. But trauma sticks to the body. And I think it's important for youth to realize, one, it's not their fault, but two, it is their responsibility to take care of themselves and to reverse anything that's happened so you can get a chance at life the proper way.
I love that you talked about trauma because I do want to mention that we are in a time right now in the country that a lot of kids are actually not going to be are being traumatized right now.
Mhm.
Let's be real here with a lot of the immigration that's happening. And so I want people to understand that like this is beyond just like who belongs where and what country, what
Right.
your citizenship. Like at the end of the day, like you are literally traumatizing human beings,
Hmm.
especially the youth. And what that can do to someone in the long term, I feel like the trauma in the long term is actually worse off than what we're doing in the moment. Like that's my
Right.
personal take on it.
Hmm.
I'll say it. Like we are doing more harm and more of a disservice by, just taking families apart
Yeah,
and putting kids in detention centers, taking parents from the kids, leaving them parentless. And so I want to like dig a little bit deeper in that if you're okay with it, because
definitely.
I feel like, we can talk about this, but unless we can address like how we can help and have a solution, then nothing's going to change. So
True.
someone like yourself that has gone through it, that is going through it, what are
Hmm.
some of the things that we could do better as adults, as parents, to help all of you during trauma? I mean, because there's so many people that deal with it, but if we're willingly knowing that there's someone that has experienced trauma, like how's the best way that we can show up for that child, that youth, that teen,
Hmm.
that young adult?
Also a great question, especially as a mentor. There's two sides to this question because on one end, I love that it's being asked. And then I'm also on the other end sad because I know a lot of youth who have trauma won't have adults in their life who are asking that question, like, how
Mm,
can I properly help you? I've had so many adults in my life who think they're asking that question, but then they show up and they do too much. So that would go into my answer. I think the proper way to show up for a youth who's been traumatized is to do less doing,
mm,
focus on less doing, offering things, buying things, trying to solve problems, and do more of just being. When I was, for example, I was younger, I had a casa who's a mentor that shows up for me in court.
yeah.
I've known her for 9 years, and she had to learn how to talk to me as well because she never had kids of her own. But the one thing she did do really well is when we would go to lunch, she wouldn't talk. And I don't mean like she'd give me the silent treatment. I mean, she would not talk to intentionally give me space to fill it up. And when I realized this is an adult who's dressed properly, who isn't showing up with bruises like my mom is to my visits, she's showing up as a lawyer, she's taking me out to lunch. When I noticed like she's listening to me, it made me realize I deserve to be listened to by anybody. So if you're an adult in someone's life, continue to live your own life, continue to be stable, continue to do your job and have your own hobbies and your own interests so that a youth can see that not only can they be like you, but you care about them and they deserve that. It goes a long way.
That I think is going to be so powerful for anybody to
Hmm.
hear because they can show up that way for anybody. You don't even have to
Exactly.
be someone that has gone through the system. It could be any parent just showing up for their kids. And I think
Hmm.
that is something that a lot of parents are struggling with, especially now with the fact that so many kids are distracted by their phones
Yep.
and are distracted by so much. A lot of them
Right.
have essentially given up on
Hmm.
it because they're like, I'm not going to compete with the phone. I'm not going to compete with the video games. You need to try.
Hmm.
Like you're the parent. Like you can't just give up. Like it's
Hmm.
hard and it's more difficult now, I feel like, than ever. And so if there is a way, I guess, compete with the phones, with the social media and with the video games and the technology, what would be something that you would suggest? Like if in
Right.
that moment, if you're like, my kid's just always on the phone, I don't know how to get them to actually open up to me. Like what would be something that you could suggest for a parent to do?
Another great question. And I think this proves, are you a parent yourself?
Yes, so I have a 24 and a
Okay.
21-year-old. I don't talk about them very much because I respect their boundary and I respect their
Nice.
privacy. And they're very supportive of what I'm doing, but they
Hmm.
also are kind of like, Mom, that's your thing. So, yeah, so I'm practicing it myself.
Nice.
with my
I asked
kids.
that. Yeah, I asked that because it was such a mom question. It was such a like
Yes.
a proper you've experienced it and you want to help other parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say that I've gone through it, like in the
Yeah.
sense where now we're on the other side where my kids are very open with me and we have great
Hmm.
dialogue, but I've learned from all of you and having
Hmm.
conversations with all of you.
Nice. Yeah, I can see
Yeah.
that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, great question because yeah, I love it. I would say you don't compete with social media. Parents shouldn't even try, but
Okay.
I would give hope in saying that social media and the phone, they offer a source of connection for youth. A lot of times, especially after COVID, people are scared of each other and we're
Yeah.
not talking as much as we used to. High school's not the same, middle school's not the same. So I would say to not see social media and the phone as an enemy. Youth are just using it as a tool as they best can. And secondly, it gets old. Me at 22, I can sit on my phone for an hour, but I will put it down because it gets boring, it gets unsatisfying. And I think as a parent, that is where you should want to try to come in, is when they put that phone down naturally or with structure that a parent offers, like put it off at 10 p.m. or how parents have that structure. Whenever they do put it down, that's your time to shine. And that's where you don't force connection, but you, as a parent, try to explore new hobbies that they can join with you, like painting or going on walks, things that we don't do anymore as a society, things that we were doing during COVID, maybe cooking a meal, watching a new show, like offer a source of connection with your youth when that phone comes down naturally and do things that are interesting that maybe catch their eye. Because we still, if things are sparkling, we're still going to look
Yeah.
at 18, 19, 20, etc.
I think it's a great point because I will say from some of the conversations that I've had on this podcast, there's a lot of young adults your age that actually crave what was before social media. Like they see that I got to
Yes,
experience, the sleepovers and the staying out in the street until it got dark, until someone yelled
right.
at you. And then we didn't have, phones. You had to actually pick up like an actual landline. And if you were busy, would be like
Crazy.
the phone was busy. So I feel like a lot of them actually kind of wish that they had that. So I feel like it's a
Yes.
great opportunity for a parent to be like, oh my gosh, not in a way of like when I was your age and almost like you're judging someone or you're like punishing them for it. It's like, no, oh my gosh, did you know that when I was your age, like this is what we did and this is what I enjoyed? Like I think parents don't realize how much their child wants to hear about their past, their childhood,
True.
what they liked. And
Hmm.
so it's remembering that you guys have access to all of this, but it's because we gave it to you. We created
That
it.
part.
It's
Yeah.
not like you guys invented the phone and social
Right.
media. No, we did. Right.
That's
So
a
it's
good
like,
point.
yeah, we have to hold ourselves accountable for that.
Right.
You guys literally are, that's like what you grew up with. It's not your
Hmm.
fault. It's really important for adults to recognize that. And so I think it's always a great opportunity to come in and be like, or look, this is the music that I used to listen to. Because I feel like your
Exactly.
generation is really into the 90s
Funny,
reason.
yeah, we are actually into the 90s. I'm actually into like the 70s and 80s
Oh,
because my
you
mom
are.
is
Okay.
an older generation, but 90s for sure are definitely our vibe.
Yeah, it's really cute because I will say my son will be okay with this. When he got like his driver's license and had a car, like every time I would go in his car, like if he picked me up for something or I was in there, he always played an 80s playlist that he had put together with like Tears for Fears and like all the this like 80s bands. And I
Proud to
appreciate
show
that he
you.
knew that
Yeah,
I'm a huge 80s fan. Like I love all
nice.
that modern rock. And so I love that like because he knew that he would play the playlist and he
That's
actually shared it
sweet.
with me on my iTunes.
Nice.
And so when my kids know something that I like, they're like, Mom, I thought about you. And then they'll
I
call
love
me
that.
to tell me that they thought about me because of something. So again, like
Right.
parents, like there's so many ways to connect with your child. There really
Hmm.
is. It's just you got to be creative. You got to be willing to just, like you said, not be competitive about
Exactly.
it.
And non-judgmental. Yeah. Like you
Yeah.
said, the phone is a tool that we're gonna have in our lives for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
So if there's any judgment, it's not helpful because if anything, we can adapt it into our lives. But I love that you shared that. That's such a sweet, like wanting you to be proud of him moment with your son. So that's so
Yeah.
sweet.
And even with
Yeah.
he just moved into an apartment and he FaceTime and he's like, hey, Mom, what do you think of like my room? And like, I
Sweet.
love that my kids actually appreciate my opinion and want to hear
Hmm.
it. My
That
daughter,
says a lot.
she'll FaceTime me. What do you think of this outfit? But it took a lot of time and a lot of years for us to get to that place. So I want parents to
Mm,
understand that it doesn't happen overnight. but you've got to be consistent with it. You've got to be very genuine and sincere about it. And you have
Hmm.
to be willing to apologize and admit when you did something wrong. I feel like that was a big one for me was when I started
That's
admitting
huge.
that I was doing things maybe that weren't like the best way to do it, but it's because it was my ego. It's because I thought
Right.
like that's what was necessary. And when I kind of opened up to them with my insecurities and
Hmm.
my traumas, then they could better understand, okay, that's why mom is reacting this way. Or
Yes.
and then they like respect you more for it because you're willing to be like, hey, I'm still trying to figure it out too. So that's another thing
Yes.
I feel like parents need to really be willing to
Yes.
just admit that they're not perfect.
Yes. Well said. That should be on a shirt because that was a lesson in itself that even I'm experiencing now with my own mother. I've been in
Mm.
contact with her my whole life, my biological.
Oh, okay.
And you made such a good point. Accountability goes a long way. And I've noticed in my own life, I've struggled taking accountability for mistakes that I've made in relationships that I've done people wrong in because my own mother has never came to me and said, "Hey, Vanessa, I'm sorry that I lost you. I'm sorry
Mm.
that I didn't come back for you." I've never heard that. And the religious aspect that I mentioned earlier makes it harder because there's a lot of forgiveness on my end. But like you said, it helps when a parent shows that they're human too, and that provides a safe space to build a good relationship. Otherwise, the parent acts like they're perfect. The kid is going to act like I want nothing to do with you. So,
Exactly. So let
yeah.
me ask you this because I do go to family therapy with my
Oh,
parents and my
nice.
siblings, and I do individual.
Wow.
Yes. There are things that I wish my parents would say or do that I know they're not going to. And my therapist is
Mm,
like, you're going to have to like let go of the fact that you're never going to hear what you want to hear. I'm curious with your mom not owning up to certain things. Are you still holding out for her to own up, or have you managed to kind of accept that you might not ever get what you need from her?
yeah. Well, I've noticed that, like any other relationship, like if it was someone my age, if someone's not taking accountability and I continue to talk to them, I'm just enabling the fact that it's okay that they're not taking
Mm,
accountability. So with my mom, most recently, I've put up pretty good boundaries where
okay.
I've taken breaks, stopped talking to her, and just make it known like, hey, how you're acting or how you're not taking accountability is not okay. And then it gives her a space in her own life to say, okay, Vanessa's not talking to me. Why is that? Maybe I need to go work on myself so that when she does talk to me, she can better be in a place to acknowledge the things she's done wrong. So I don't sugarcoat it as much anymore. If I was, straight out of foster care years ago, I would have. I sugarcoated her leaving me for so long.
Mm.
But honestly, my partner, my boyfriend who I'm with,
Hmm.
has changed my perspective a lot too. From he being a man, which is totally different than me being a young woman,
Yeah.
to definitely change my perspective and me realizing I deserve her to take accountability. I deserve an
Yeah.
apology for her to show it. So I totally understand with your parents, it's probably different because they raised you. So you have maybe a
Yeah.
little bit more
Well, and also
leniency.
I'm 49 years old and I'm just now
Nice.
realizing like things that, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
you're so young and the fact that
Mhm.
already you're in this place of understanding the dynamic and setting your boundaries, like I didn't know what boundaries were until recently.
Right. Right.
And I'm just learning to exercise them with like certain people and everything.
Hmm.
I didn't realize how important it was to have boundaries and to protect
Yeah.
your energy and your space and your time and all of
Hmm.
those things. So I feel like that's also a really important topic as well. And,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother episode as well, talking about how to
Yeah.
even, exercise boundaries, because it's not easy either. And some people are like,
Great
I don't even
topic.
know what
Yeah.
a boundary is, Yeah, because
That's a great topic.
in the past I would have, I don't know what a boundary is. Like, what does that
Yeah.
mean? Can I ask you with your partner, is this like your first like serious relationship?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Okay.
is. I met him when I was 19.
Okay.
And yeah, we've held out. It's been on and off because there's trauma on both ends.
Got it.
But one thing it's taught me is you get to decide the life you want to live. And even though it's been hard when we've gone up and down because of our own trauma, we've pushed through. I'm like seeing we're doing it. It's actually working. We're breaking these generational curses of like single parenting or wanting to be together but forcing ourselves to stay apart. Like we're really breaking through a lot of things that we had to see our parents go through.
That's amazing. Or do you go to
Yeah.
therapy now?
Yes, I
You do.
do.
Okay, I could tell.
Mhm.
That's why I feel like, gosh, if we could be spending money on like, everybody having a therapist or someone to talk to,
True.
like there's just so many things that I feel like we could be doing that's so
That's true.
proactive
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's like so frustrating for me at times. And speaking to all of you, I just love that I have this platform and I'm able to have
Hmm.
these conversations, because just this conversation between you and I feel like there's so many things in here. There's so many
Yeah.
lessons and so many things that people can take away. Simple things. Like I think
Hmm.
people make things so much more complicated than they
Yes,
need
they
to
do.
be. Oh, it's like the listening
Yeah.
part.
Hmm.
Just listen.
Yeah.
So I would love to ask you like your future, because you were talking about how you
Yeah.
work with
Thank you.
the
I
kindergartners that have
do.
gone through the system, or just
Just in general.
okay. So
Yeah.
what do you do? And I would love to hear more about what you envision your future to look like career wise.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So my career is an exciting conversation because I don't know where it's headed, but I know
Okay.
it's on a good path, which is exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just finished UCLA. I'm going back in August for my Master of Legal Studies at the
Um,
UCLA School of Law. So that's exciting.
that is impressive.
Um,
Congratulations,
yeah,
Vanessa. That is a very impressive thing. So you should be very
appreciate
proud
it.
of yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, it hasn't clicked yet, but I'm excited that I've kept going. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Good for
So
you.
after that, or like during that, I'm keeping the job that I have now where I work as a program leader with kindergarten youth. So during an after school program, I set up activities and just a safe space for kindergarten youth to explore, to connect, to continue to develop their emotional regulation skills. And I've done it since March in the field that I'm in now with kindergarten youth.
Okay.
Before, I've worked with foster youth that were 18 plus. I've worked with homeless youth in a remote setting, but this is the first time I'm like hands-on, and it's like triggering my primal nurturing habits and skills. So it's really exciting. I also get to see like the difference between me and other program leaders who are straight out of college versus me who's straight out of survival mode. So I take this job a little bit more seriously because I know how vulnerable these little kids are. There's a couple of kids that you can tell go home to rough situations. So I definitely am proud of how I've connected with those kiddos. So my future and my career, I just see it being filled with a lot of advocacy, a lot of fighting for children's rights, some global advocacy work, more schooling, a lot of more schooling. So
Yeah.
bright places for sure.
That's incredible. I mean, you are such a perfect example of someone that's not allowing their past to define like who they are, but they're
Mhm.
using it to help give back and to do
Exactly.
better. And I feel like too many people, once again, they label, so they automatically assume like, who are they to be,
Right.
educating our youth or working with our youth? If anything, you guys are the best people to do that, because
Yes.
you have experienced things that a lot of us haven't.
Hmm.
And having that goes such a long way than, a textbook or school. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to discount school and education,
Hmm.
but we cannot forget that experience
Yeah, lived
it's key.
experience. Yeah.
Lived experience is key for
Right.
sure.
Hmm.
And I could totally see you as being someone that is just like, paving
Oh,
the
thank
way
you.
for so many other youth to acknowledge like, hey, yeah, maybe I need to take this like pain and take this trauma and
Exactly.
help those, because that is hard too, because I had this conversation with my mentee, and she's going to be on the podcast soon and
Oh,
everything, and
nice.
she wants to also start advocating. Was asking her about, when did you, because she had the whole why me thing, and I go, what did it
Mm,
take for you to finally realize like it's not why me anymore, it's like how can I
hmm.
now give back? So
Hmm.
that's like another conversation too that I would love to have with her. But how long did it take for you to get out of the why me really quickly? Like I'm curious, like
Yeah. For me, it was flipped because of the religious growing up that I
okay.
had. For me, recently it became it's okay that it happened to me to now it's transforming into it's actually not okay what happened to me. And for a lot of
Gotcha.
foster youth, it's the other way. It's
Opposite.
why is this
Yeah.
happening to me? I don't deserve it. I'm going to act out because this is wrong. Now let me clean up my life. For me, it's totally a flip. So it's really interesting because it's hard, but it's also freeing and more traumatizing because then I have to
Yeah.
dig up all the pain I went through that I never addressed. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's different for everyone.
Okay. No, but I'm glad that you said that yours is different, because there is going
Yeah.
to be, everybody's is different.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, for me to be opening up wounds at 49 and be 50, like at this point, like who cares? Let it go. Right. But it's like, I have to
No.
understand why I'm still, repeating patterns and why I'm defaulting to certain
Yes.
behaviors, all of these
Defaulting.
things. And it's
Hmm.
like and I didn't realize that we get conditioned.
Yes, we
And so
do.
it's unconditioning ourselves. And I want to be
Hmm.
someone that's like, just because I'm older, I don't want to give up on being able to evolve and become a better human being and to be able
Amen.
to make better choices.
And I will say too, it's easy to look at even me, for example, and say, like, oh, you're a foster youth and you've thrived and you've gone to school. But I am so imperfect in my personal relationships. I've had to learn how to not abandon people because I've been abandoned, not betray people because I've been so far from perfect. And we're all constantly, if you stop working on yourself, your life will get miserable quick. Yeah,
So it's gonna, yeah, it's a constant like working on yourself. And I love it.
definitely.
Like now that I'm doing the work, I'm like so
It's
proud of
exciting.
myself. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's, I mean, it's a
Yeah.
lot. Like I will say, like I joke around how people would be like, I'm doing the work. And I'm like, I don't know what the frick me that means. Like, and now that I'm in it, I told my therapist, I'm like, I'm that person now that I'm like, I'm doing the work and it feels really great. And
It does though. It does. Yeah.
yeah, because like when you can start now, like actually acknowledging certain things, like when I default to something, I'm like, oh, this is why, da da, and then I can like connect the dots, and then I totally change the way I think, and then my outcome is different than it was
Yeah.
before, and like it's really exciting. It's almost like fun,
Hmm.
like puzzle piece that I'm just
Hmm.
nerdy like that. So for me, it's
Same.
so I
That's my
love like
lingo. Yeah.
yeah, I love the psychology and the neuroscience behind everything. So then it's like I
Same.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we are rounding out, so I
Hmm.
want you to just kind of give any kind of closing remarks that you want to give.
Yeah, I had such a great time, first of all. This was so exciting and fun. I do a lot of meetings, and sometimes I see myself like putting on a mask to always sound perfect or like, how can I say the most wisdom? But here it was such a conversation. So thank you. It means a
Thank
lot.
you.
My closing remarks. First, to anyone watching, have a beautiful day. Listening to this podcast, I hope, people learned at least one thing about themselves and kind of took away some of the like shame or the burden of having to work on yourself and see it's really fun and exciting, like we said. Yeah, and to any youth, just know that it's a blessing to be the age that you are and you're on the right path, no matter where you're at. That's all I would say, I think. So
That's
thank you,
beautiful.
Raquel. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Bye.
it. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode and you're between the ages of 18 and 24 and would like to be a featured guest, go to rock.vision. Until next